What is up, you guys? I am Missy Renee, and in today's video I want to talk about some of the most common misconceptions when it comes to manifestation. These are the things that I have noticed there is a lot of confusion around and a lot of, I wouldn't say misinformation, but there is a lot of confusion around these topics, so I wanted to bring them up and I wanted to clarify them in today's video. So if manifestation and conscious creation are topics that you are interested in learning more about, then definitely don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit that bell icon so that way you're notified when I put out new content every week. If you're interested in other resources such as one-on-one coaching, I will leave the link for that down in the description box below. And the reason that I wanted to make this video overall is because ultimately there is so much information out there when it comes to manifesting. There are so many different teachers and gurus and YouTube people, coaches. It can be overwhelming for somebody who is new to this topic and somebody who is new to conscious creation to find out what is actually the way to go about doing this. And I know this feeling personally because this was literally my story for years. I studied everything out there that I could, everything that I can get my hands on. I documented everything. I took notes on everything. I applied everything. So it really wasn't until a handful of years ago, about 5 years ago now, when I stumbled onto Neville, that things really started to fall into place for me. And things really started to take off when it came to my manifestations and when it came to deliberately creating the life that I wanted. But there's a lot of confusion out there, and it could be frustrating and it could be discouraging. And I want more than anything else in the world for you guys to be able to truly grasp this and for you to be able to apply this in a way that is concise and it makes sense and that shows results. Because when we are getting started, when we're new to this and we're searching the internet for information, I mean, think about how much time we spend reading all the books, watching all the YouTube videos, all the blog posts, all the workshops and webinars and Facebook groups. I mean, it is just a lot. So naturally people are going to get confused and frustrated. This is a breeding ground for a whole lot of upset and frustration. So I want to bring up some topics today that are going to help clarify some of the biggest misconceptions that I've seen as it relates to the law. Now, I've already talked about in another video the difference between Neville Goddard's philosophy and the law of attraction. So this isn't going to be so much a video based on what the law of attraction teaches. This is actually more things that I've seen other Neville Goddard teachers and gurus claim. These are concepts and teachings from other Neville Goddard teachers. So there's a few things especially that need to be cleared up. So if you've struggled with applying the law, if you've struggled with manifesting and seeing results, and you're wondering if something is getting screwed up in your manifestation practice, then definitely stick around through the end of the video because I'm going to break down some of the biggest misconceptions out there and give you guys the accurate information so that you can go about creating the life that you want. So the first thing that I really want to talk about, and the first concept that really needs to be explained, is signs and looking for signs and what exactly to look for as signs when it comes to conscious creation. Now, this isn't something that is so much taught as it is something that people who are new to this naturally do. And this is a habit that a lot of people who are new to this fall into. So I want to talk about looking for signs in your 3D world, because this is one of the most challenging things to overcome for somebody who's new to manifesting. As humans, we naturally want to be able to measure something or be able to see it objectively so we know that we're on the right path and we know that we're doing this correctly. So a lot of people will fall into the habit of looking for signs in their outside 3D world. Now, I want to be clear about this because if you notice progression with your desired end, if you notice that things are moving in the right direction, then yes, you can take that as a sign that you are on the right track and to keep going. For example, if you're trying to manifest an SP and you've been keeping yourself in that desired end and you've been persistent in that assumption that you guys are together, and then you notice that they reach out to you and they start talking to you again, then yes, that is a sign that you are on the right track. And that is a sign that you should definitely keep persisting in that end, no matter what. However, there's a lot of people who naturally will look to the outside for any kind of proof that it's working, and they will be scrambling to try to find something in their external reality that shows that they're doing this right. And this is not the way that you want to do it. A lot of people feel like they need to, in order to get more confidence in their ability to manifest, see proof or some kind of sign that it's working. And if you are constantly trying to get some kind of confirmation from your external reality that it's working, then you are still clearly coming from a state of lack. You are still clearly noticing that your desire is not yours. So you want to be careful about this. The key here when it comes to signs is that you have to be able to suspend that disbelief of whatever it's currently showing you. Even if it's not what you want to see, even if you're not seeing the progress externally, it does not mean that it's not working. And this is one of the biggest hang-ups that people fall into. Because again, we've always felt that we need to see it in order to believe it. But in this case, it is the exact opposite. You need to believe it in order to see it. A lot of people get stuck into the thought pattern of, if I can just see some sign that it's working, then I can believe it and I can go all in and I can actually do this. But unfortunately, that's not how the law works. Because your outside reality is just a mirror of what you actually believe is true and what you actually assume is true for you in your world. It's going to reflect that same degree of truth that you ultimately believe. It's only going to show you what you truly believe is fact. And this is why it is so important to keep your focus on your desired end. And you're going to have to stop going outside of yourself for signs that it's working. I cannot stress this enough because, as Neville said, signs follow. They do not precede, which means that once you are already in that state and you are able to keep yourself in that state for long enough where it becomes your dominant state, then you're going to start seeing the signs in your 3D. Another big misconception that I see going around from people who teach the law is that everyone else in your world is just a lifeless pawn, that they're not real, and that you have full control over everybody in your world. This is 100% not true. Everybody in your world is just as real as you are and have the same powers that you do. Everyone as you pushed out just means that everybody in your reality is going to reflect your deepest beliefs and assumptions. That version of each person in your life is going to reflect what you believe to be true. And I honestly think this is pushed not intentionally to throw people off, but because there's still not that understanding of the law. A lot of people, even coaches, even these Neville gurus, are still under the assumption and the impression that we have to change people, that manifesting means that we have to change them. And it's easier to wrap your head around this concept if you can think of them like they're just these pawns or these robots, these lifeless beings that you can dictate and you can control, yada, yada, yada. But again, there is nothing to change. We are not trying to change anybody. And let me give you an analogy to try to break it down and give you guys an easier way to look at it. Say that you go to a restaurant and you order a steak and you order it rare, right? You like your steak a certain way, you like it super rare, and the waiter screws up and they bring you a steak that is well done. Now, how on earth would you fix this? How can you uncook a steak? You can't. I mean, it's just silly. When you think about it in that context, it just sounds ridiculous. And you would be right if you were to think that. But unfortunately, that's the same kind of mindset that a lot of people take with them into manifesting. If you approach manifesting with that same kind of mentality, then naturally you're going to think that it's really hard and that it's really difficult. But manifesting isn't uncooking your steak. Manifesting is realizing that the waiter screwed up and that all you need to do is order a new steak. When we manifest a specific person, we're not trying to change that version of them in front of you. And that's why you are instructed to go completely to the end. And don't take any of the past circumstances between you guys. Don't take any of the current versions that you don't like into that end scene with you. Because you're not manifesting a change in them, you're manifesting the version of them that you desire to be with. And by doing so, you are stepping into a state where that version of that person already exists. So again, we're not changing anyone. We're just moving ourselves into a state or a reality where that version of our specific person already exists. And that is the very, very clear distinction that I want to make sure you guys completely understand, because it's this concept of feeling like we need to change our SP that really gets us hung up. And if we can drop that notion, if we can get ourselves out of that mindset, we're going to have a much easier time approaching this. So no, people are not just mindless drones for you to control. People are just as real as you and me, but you're going to manifest the version of that person based on your beliefs, based on what you assume to be true. Again, everything in your reality is just a mirror showing you what is going on internally, showing you your self-concept or what you believe to be true. The third misconception about the law and about manifesting that I've heard, I've actually had this brought to my attention from two of my clients now. And it's something that's been taught by a very popular Neville Goddard coach here on YouTube. I'm not going to name any names, but the concept is that you only need to imagine something one time, and then you don't ever have to think about it again, and it's still going to manifest. 99% of the time, this is not true. Unless you have the sheer willpower of a freaking monk, you're going to find that most people will fall back into their habits and their old patterns, typically their negative thinking patterns. Most people do not have the mental strength and will to imagine something one time and then keep themselves in that state. Because again, we're creatures of habit. Most of us who are new to manifesting are going to fall back into old habits and old patterns and old trains of thought. And this is what screws up your manifestation every time. Most people do not have the mental discipline at first to just imagine something one time and then drop it, never think about it again, and then have it manifest. Because most people grew up reacting to their outside circumstances, and most people grew up believing that what the objective reality tells us is true. And most of us have grown up letting that inner talk run rampant. Most of us do not have a disciplined mind at first. And that's really what it takes. You need to have a disciplined mind. You need to be able to persist in that state of the wish fulfilled. And this is the thing that we really, really need to work on when we're new to this. Most people do not have the ability to just imagine it once and then it's done. This is why mental diet is such a key part of all of this when you're new. Along with doing SATs and along with doing the techniques, mental diet is something that you need to be constantly practicing. It's a skill that you need to be forming during your day-to-day. Again, manifestation is mastery of the mind. And specifically, it's mastery of the direction of your mind and where your focus lies during your day-to-day. Most people, if they are not careful, will succumb to their old habits and their old patterns of that negative self-talk. Most people, if they're not careful, will revert back to their old way of thinking and that self-sabotaging behavior. You manifest what you ultimately believe to be true. And yes, this is where the techniques can help us, and this is ultimately where we want to shift to. We want to step into that state of our wish fulfilled, and we want to live predominantly from that state, but this is not usually a place you get to just after imagining something once and dropping it. Now, can I do something like this? Yes. But that's because I've been practicing this for a very, very, very long time, and I have zero doubt in the law. So I barely even have to use techniques anymore if I don't want to, because I know that all it takes is for me to know that what I desire is already mine. But again, when most people are new at this, this is not a place that they can go to because they do not have that discipline and that faith. You must first change your self-concept in order to change the circumstances around you. And let me give you some passages from Neville just to kind of give you some more insight to this. Let me warn you now, a little alteration of mood is not a transformation. It is not a real change of consciousness. Because as I change my mood for the moment, it can quickly and rapidly be, I would say, replaced by another mood in the reverse direction. When I say that I was changed, as that gentleman changed his mood, his basic mood, his state of consciousness, it means that having assumed that I am what the moment denied, what my reason denied, that I remained in that state long enough to make that state stable. The habit of seeing only that which our senses permit renders us totally blind to what we would otherwise could see. To cultivate the faculty of seeing the invisible, we should often deliberately disentangle our minds from the evidence of the senses and focus our attention on an invisible state, mentally feeling it and sensing it until it has all the distinctness of reality. Earnest, concentrated thought focused on a particular direction shuts out other sensations and causes them to disappear. We have but to concentrate on the state desired in order to see it. In other words, you have to persist in that wish fulfilled, even after you've imagined it. In your day-to-day, while you're waiting for your manifestation to come, you still have to be checking in and observing your thoughts and seeing where you are in consciousness, and you have to be mindful of doing this. You have to be honest with yourself if you really want to see that change. The fourth and final thing is action, and how to take action and what that means in this context, in conscious creation. Now, this is one of those things that is more taught on the law of attraction side of things, but I still have seen some people have this mindset in the Neville Goddard community and those who teach his philosophies. There's a lot of confusion around inspired action or when to take action. So I'm not going to do too much of a deep dive into this because I've actually made a video all about inspired action. So if this is something that you're curious to watch, if this is something that you're not sure about, I definitely recommend watching that video. I explain it all up here and down in the description box below. But we need to remember that all change starts within us. Change comes through changing the self-concept that we carry. And this needs to be repeated indefinitely. Because through changing your concept of self, you will be naturally moved to take the actions that are needed in order to have your manifestation come to fruition. There is nothing that you consciously need to do other than to persist in that assumption that you are now living as the version of you that you desire to be. With this impression, once you have accepted this belief as true, a bridge of incidents will unfold naturally, and you will be inspired to move through those series of events to get you to where you ultimately desire to be. So there is nothing that you need to figure out how to do. You don't need to know how a certain thing is going to happen. You don't need to know how to go about getting something to change, because the only thing to change is what you believe to be true, that self-concept that you carry. Neville says that you don't need to lift a finger, and it's true. So when it comes to action, when it comes to inspired action, there really is nothing that you need to consciously do or figure out in order for something to happen. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can just sit there and imagine that $1 million is going to fall from the sky and land in your lap. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that whatever actions need to be taken, you will be naturally inspired to take the actions needed to get you to your desired end. So all that you need to do is imagine that you are now the person that you desire to be. Or imagine that you have the thing that you desire to have. And then persist in knowing that it's done. Persist in that assumption, no matter what the outside circumstances tell you. If you do this, you will be naturally led on a bridge of incidents, and you will be brought directly to whatever it is that you desire. So I hope that clarified a few things for you guys. Again, I really think that it's super important that you guys get the correct information and that you understand exactly how you go about doing this and how you go about creating your world. So that way you don't get stuck in the frustrated, doubtful patterns that a lot of people get stuck in. This way you don't get confused and you just give up entirely. Because the law is real. You are absolutely the power in your world. You decide your circumstances. You decide your fate. You decide the events. You can have anything that you want. But you have to know exactly what you need to do in order to get yourself into that state. So I hope this video helped. If it did, do not forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you're interested in checking out any of my other resources, I will leave the link for one-on-one coaching, my blog, and my social links down in the description box below. So don't forget to check those out. Also, do not forget to check out these videos over here. Each video is a different topic, but they all talk about how to manifest the best life you could ever imagine. So until next time, you guys, take care, be well, and never forget that you are the operant power and that you can do anything that you want. Happy manifesting, you guys.